Hello there. Thank you so much for tuning in with us. I'm Chris Praedel, Executive Director of Community Homeworks. Welcome to our December issue of Let's Talk Housing. We're so glad you're here and hope you're having a great start to the month of December. First of all, let's start off by explaining Community Homeworks. Community Homeworks is a local nonprofit based here in Kalamazoo, Michigan. We provide two focus areas, critical home repairs for homeowners in our community who have health or safety issues in their home. We also provide empowering education. So if it's something that the homeowner can do themselves, we really want to empower those individuals to learn how to do it themselves. And so we provide the education and resources to make that happen as well. We started this Let's Talk Housing series earlier this year, really with the intent of doing a better job of being intentional and partnering and featuring people who are a part of the housing space here in Kalamazoo. And this is our last month of this year. Obviously, we look forward to being back in 2022. But we are so excited to have Sharilyn Parsons with us today. Sharilyn is one of the superstars at the City of Kalamazoo, is no stranger to the housing space, and serves currently as the official title is the Housing Development and Projects Coordinator in Kalamazoo, and is really pioneering a lot of the housing strategy for the City of Kalamazoo. So we felt it was very fitting to have Sharilyn with us today. So welcome, Sharilyn.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. We're hoping if we could just kind of start off, if you could just share a little bit more about yourself and what you do with the city.
Yeah, so my position at the city is actually a new one that was launched this year. And so you said something about pioneering, and I really am pioneering a housing strategy within the city of Kalamazoo. So my objectives are to work with housing developers, whether it be rental or homeownership housing opportunities, but I'm focused on the homeownership side. In the city, a lot of the rental development is happening at a pretty steady pace, but it's important that we also balance that with ownership opportunities. So that's my main objective, is to create a balanced housing strategy.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, kind of the philosophy that we take here at Community Homeworks is that, if you think about it, it's kind of like how people describe marketing in business. It's easier to retain a customer than to attract a new one.
Mhm.
And we look at housing as very similar. Why would you keep creating more new housing if we can't keep the people in the existing housing that already exists? So
Yes.
it's a very important component to that as well.
Mhm.
Yeah. So, I mentioned that you're no stranger to the housing space. Can you tell us a little bit about how you ended up in the housing space?
Yeah, actually sort of backed into it. The trucks that make that noise, that's beep beep, that's me. And so yeah, many years ago, I was kind of a strange young woman, and I had decided that I wanted to venture into owning a home at an early age as a single woman adult. And so I didn't really have much of an idea what to do. So the first thing I went is to my public library, pulled a couple books about how you buy a house, and saw that you needed to get financed. You need to work with the bank to get financed, and then you need to get a realtor and start looking at a house. So I went to a bank, and the gentleman at the bank, for lack of a better word, just kind of poo-pooed me, told me that I had to have money, which I did because this was a goal of mine, but he never asked to look at what I had. I did have a job. I had all the qualifications to get a loan. And so I was disappointed, took a couple months, ended up talking to my father, and he was like, "No, you should be able to talk with someone at the bank." So he took me down there, and then they talked to me.
Wow.
So then I had sort of financing promise, and I got a realtor, and that gentleman started taking me to houses and then was saying things to me like, "Well, I wouldn't want my daughter to live here," albeit he wasn't my father. And he also, when I would put in offers, he would tell me that no, they didn't even get entertained. But they were full price offers. So
Wow.
I couldn't figure out what was going on, and I was really disheartened that, what is happening? Maybe I'm not supposed to buy a house. So I went back to the library, pulled a bunch of books, and started learning about housing discrimination, and thought, wait a second, maybe this is what I'm experiencing. And so I got on the phone and started calling around to ask if anyone taught on how to buy a house, and stumbled across a local nonprofit and partnered with them to begin education on housing and buying a house. And obviously, I was young, so I was looking for affordable housing, and that's how I started this career that I just love and am so passionate about.
What a cool story. That's such a
Yeah.
cool little entry point to housing.
Hmm.
And what did your journey look like into becoming, the housing development projects coordinator position at the city? What did that trajectory look like for you?
Yeah, so that was interesting. I ended up, when I was volunteering with that nonprofit in the education realm, I was a realtor. I had ended up saying, "Hey, if you're experiencing these complications, there's probably other people too." So I ended up getting my real estate license and started operating as a realtor, and then volunteering at this nonprofit. That journey led me to employment with the nonprofit for many years. But when this opportunity came available at the city, I felt that one, when I read the job description, I thought, wow, it looks like they took my resume and just wrote it for me. But I felt that this was an opportunity really for someone with my background and skill set, because I had worked in nonprofit housing and education and counseling and foreclosure prevention and nonprofit mortgage lending. I worked with the federal dollars, but I also worked as a realtor and understood the tension with the market and the fact that when you're looking at a housing strategy, you really need to balance the tension and be really conscious that you're serving the neighbors or the homeowners and the residents, but also the neighborhoods. That everything you do within the neighborhoods is either building and strengthening the fabric of that unique neighborhood, or potentially adding strain to the fabric of that neighborhood. And I knew that I've seen it in other communities where people don't factor the neighborhoods into their plans, and all of a sudden you start getting units or buildings erected that just start to tear at the fabric of that community.
Yeah,
But then with my real estate background, I have a strong understanding in the market itself, the real estate market, and that everything you do in housing on one end creates a tension and a pull on the other end, and that it's important when we're talking about housing strategies and construction of units that you're really balancing that tension so you don't have unintended consequences that pull the market to an extreme
yeah,
that ultimately harm both the neighborhoods and the neighborhoods,
yeah,
or and the neighbors themselves. And you also don't want to be too not aggressive enough to where you actually end up kind of turning that market upside down,
sure.
which has the unintended consequence also through reduced equity on the neighborhood and the neighbors. So
Yeah.
there's a fine line, and I knew that with my background and my understanding, I understood that tension. And because I've been in this city forever, I also knew the uniqueness of Kalamazoo.
Yeah,
So
yeah, that's perfect. Yeah,
yeah.
that's a neat journey. It's a good reminder too about how, I guess, like a challenging ecosystem it is to balance.
Hmm.
It's not
Hmm.
just like, oh, this can just pop up here. Like you
Hmm.
said, it's there for every action there's a reaction in some
Yes.
capacity, either good or bad. So yeah, that was a really good way to put it. Is there anything that you're really particularly excited about that you're working on right now, that's going on in the housing space that you're really loving being a part, or that's happening that you're excited about?
Yeah, so one thing that I'm really excited about is just the opportunity to create ownership. So really, to think about the existing homeowners and the new homeowners. So those who are already like investing their time, their energy, their life, their family into the city. And so thinking of strategies that that just really preserve and create ownership opportunities,
Yeah.
and then also thinking about what does that mixed income strategy look like so that we have long-term affordable housing and we also have options to ensure that existing housing remains affordable, but as well as creating opportunities that, once again, talking back to the market, that assist the market to ensure that the existing homeowners within that market get to experience the sort of the wealth building that traditionally real estate brings.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. Um, yeah, no, that's really good to hear.
Mhm.
And I definitely love like the intergenerational wealth component of home ownership as well, whether it's retaining or, becoming a new homeowner as well, which is great and very much needed in our community.
Yeah.
Um, so in terms of COVID-19, I mean, we're what, 21 months into this societal experience.
Mhm.
How has it impacted your team? How has it impacted, what strategies and things you were trying? Like, how is it just impacting the housing space in general? Like, what are you seeing,
Mhm.
from close to home to broader?
Yeah, so just on a really sort of practical level, how it's affected housing is costs. I mean, the everything went up in cost, the delays that it's caused. So even things that you wouldn't necessarily think that, oh, that plant shutting down in, Washington affects the fact that we can't get glass now, 12 months later in Kalamazoo. And so just being able to think about, okay, the additional cost. Now, our markets haven't changed, so it costs more, but our markets stay the same. So, how do we navigate partnerships? Because what COVID, I feel, the positive, um, unintended consequence of having to shift and having to experience delays and cost runovers is that it has created this really new unique environment of partnership and collaboration
Mhm.
where it's like, wait a second, I used to be able, not me personally, but as an organization or a partner or a builder, used to be able to do this by myself. I
Yeah.
used to be able to go in and just get, and wait a second, I need assistance now. I need to partner with nonprofits. I need potentially to look at different funding sources and opportunities. I need to figure out, who is most affected by COVID, and how can we wrap around services. So, uh, so for us in the housing sphere, you know, costs,
Yeah.
delays,
Yeah.
but the cool part that's come out of it is, I think, just the increase in partnerships and collaborations.
Yeah. Yeah. Most definitely.
Mhm.
Yeah, you're spot on about the delays and the costs for sure. I mean, I can imagine. I keep thinking about people who are from scratch home builders, or
Yeah.
people who are building, the creamery or whatever on Portage Road. I mean,
Mhm.
I can't imagine from like an ecosystem perspective of trying to get everything that you were planning and whatnot on time, and not having like labor delays and those sort of things. Even just on a small level for us, we work with a lot of subcontractors, and there's so much demand for people who want to add new decks and are installing or renovating their bathrooms and using all that, stimulus
Mhm.
dollars and money that they
Yeah.
didn't spend going on vacations to upgrade their home, that, to get the attention of a subcontractor to say, hey, can you come spend 2 hours in a low income home that needs your help in an urgent thing in an urgent situation is difficult.
Yeah.
And so, we're finding that what would have taken, maybe days to respond to is now sometimes taking 2 to 3 weeks to schedule them out. And we're hoping, I mean, I'm sure it's just, a phase. Hopefully that won't last for long, but yeah, it's definitely a tricky part. And even just the cost, I mean, just like lumber for a while was just through the
Yeah.
roof, I mean, 20% increase or more.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and we're seeing that too, what you say, like with just the contractor capacity. And there used to be a really steady volume, in real estate. There's just been a constant sort of turnover, and it just rolls along according to the same schedule. But when
Mhm.
everything halted, yeah, all those typical projects that would happen in one year, they just stopped.
Mhm.
But there's still real projects that need to happen, and so now projects are doubled or
Yeah.
tripled. And and labor force is just the capacity is 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 tight, is
Yeah.
kind of maxed out, and so we are looking at strategies to kind of create opportunities for additional and new contractor
Yeah.
training.
That's
Yeah,
great.
yeah,
Another income generate or intergenerational wealth
yeah.
opportunity as well, for people to find professions that are high paying and, have benefits and those sort of things as well. It's huge.
Hmm.
It's powerful. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'm looking forward to, what it's like in kind of normal times with, subcontractor recruitment and those sort of things. But like you say, it forces you to be creative and to be
Yeah,
innovative about how you work through it and do it. And
yeah.
it's cool to see how, organizations, maybe we can all write books about this someday so that there's like a, creativity manual to get through these kind of situations.
Right.
Um, so I've heard it referred to as different in different forms, but most commonly I hear it as like the endless referral loop or dead end referrals kind of thing about types of gaps that exist in the community where we can't quite figure out where to extinguish the fire that exists. If that makes any sense. Sometimes it's somebody has an issue and it's hard to pinpoint who is the person that can help solve this problem in the community. What do you see any major gaps that exist that we're struggling to tackle as a community, not just as the city of Kalamazoo, but we as like a community or as Kalamazoo County or just our local ecosystem are either needing to work on or are working on or just aren't dealt with yet?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. So, let me answer that first as honestly I can, which in
Yeah.
my position, I don't hear a lot about that sort of endless referral loop.
Yeah.
Um, However, I do know that especially with housing and crisis situations, that it is challenging because crisis, just by sort of nature of crisis, time is of the essence.
Sure.
And when it comes to housing, you don't necessarily want to cut corners for the sake of time,
Right.
and so it is always a challenge, I think, to balance the need for immediacy, especially in the housing arena, with sort of the intentionality that comes along with housing repairs. So, this needs to be done. Well, you could potentially get that done in an hour.
Hmm.
But next week you might be calling again. And
Yeah.
so
Exactly.
so there is once again sort of that tension or that push and pull. But I do think as a community we try to keep our 311 contact center as up to date as possible
Yeah.
with if there's a new program or if there's a nonprofit or an agency that's doing something that maybe isn't on that 311 resource list, that we make the connection, because I think that that's one of the strengths that we have as a community, that within 311, it not just is just a place to put messages or try to get information, but it also tries to partner the activities or the programs within the agency of referring,
Yeah.
however you say that properly. And so I would hope that tool is being used.
Can you for people who might not be familiar with 311, can you explain a little bit about what that is? I know it launched literally like the week before the pandemic started, which was I remember going to like the opening where they had like cake and balloons in it, and it was like right, like days before the shutdown was going to happen. I was thinking, oh boy, but yeah,
Yeah.
probably good timing for it though.
Yeah. So within the city of Kalamazoo, 311 311, you hit those numbers on your phone and it connects you to a contact center, which you'll be able to get some referral information, to state what's going on, your question, your concerns, and hopefully make connections with, as I mentioned, with sort of the COVID pivot. Make connections with the partners and the collaborators and those that are launching and responding to community need in our community.
Yeah, for
Hmm.
sure. I'll skip over the next question. I was just going to ask about some of the greatest challenges in housing, but I think we kind of touched on that a little bit.
Yeah.
What about just, what do you see as some of the bigger barriers that people are facing? And how does that like kind of stack up against, is it just unique to us as a community, or is it kind of like system-wide, nationwide issues?
Yeah. Unfortunately, my most direct answer to that is probably nationwide, and it's access to capital.
Hmm.
I think one of the biggest barriers in the area of housing is the fact that it is unavoidable in housing. It's going to cost money. It's either going to cost money to buy, i.e., borrow money to buy a house, or it's going to cost to maintain that house. And so having access to credit or lending dollars, I think is nationwide just a problem. It's an industry that when it did change pre the collapse, um, it changed in such a greedy way that it wasn't thought out. The unintended consequence was we're just going to lend money no matter what, and it doesn't matter if we do any sort of research as to whether this is a factual or fraudulent loan. It did that pendulum swing, and then it needs to come back to some sort of balance
Hmm.
where there are different challenges with creating access to capital as it relates to affordable housing. Um, Down payment challenges, just your monthly budget, what it looks like, how things are staggered or paid, and I think that the lending community needs to needs to be a part of solving this barrier.
Yeah,
And and I think that it's well not I think it is part of my housing strategy to really work with especially local lenders to solve this barrier, to work through this barrier for our community.
yeah,
It's not only is it the right thing to do, but it needs to happen.
absolutely. No,
Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely.
Mhm.
Um, I guess this is a good segue to this next question. So, how do you see the when you, and I will admit this, you do pass me as somebody who is an optimist, so this might be a good question. Um, do you think Kalamazoo's on a good trajectory when it comes to tackling the housing crisis?
Yes. And the reason why I say yes is because I think one of the things that the city really does well is we have a master plan, the Imagine Kalamazoo master plan, but then the planning was taken a step further and broken into neighborhood plans where each neighborhood could really communicate about their needs, about their concerns, what they see. And within both of those plans, housing is a priority. And so I think one of the challenges for jurisdictions is when housing's just sort of an afterthought. And then, okay, you might get those who come into the community who see they can make money at doing housing and say, oh, well, here's an opportunity for me to make housing for this community and then move on. Whereas with this sort of planning and foresight, it it's really taking into consideration, all right, this is what the neighborhoods are saying, the neighbors are saying, and so that isn't always a project that maybe makes the most financial sense from a developer standpoint. The type of money they could possibly make from the development. So I think that Kalamazoo is in a really good place to begin to tackle the housing crisis, primarily because they actually have a plan in place to tackle it.
Hmm.
And then not only is it just a plan that's, sort of proverbial sitting on a shelf somewhere, but they actually hired someone to basically oversee this, to shepherd it, to be be the voice on Let's Talk Housing and say this this is an important component of the overall makeup of our city, and
Yeah.
we have to invest both time and money and resources and energy and just thought. We need to have somebody who's who's just thinking about this, and then bringing the partners, the community homeworks, talking with them and being willing to come into forums even such as this one and
Yeah.
say, yeah, we're serious about addressing
Yeah.
and ensuring that we are in a um, improved space 5 years from now.
Yeah.
And and we're also thinking about creating home ownership, as you mentioned before, in both that preserving but also creating in a way that isn't just market driven.
Hmm.
So if you think about new construction, and if something happens wonky in the market, then all of a sudden new construction, maybe you can't get financed for it, or maybe the cost is prohibitive to build it. But if you think about existing homeowners and the existing housing stock, are there strategies that we can actually implement and work towards that that isn't necessarily just based on what's the market doing and what makes sense based on the market,
Yeah.
but kind of circling back, looking at what makes sense for the neighbors, for the neighborhoods, and the market.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I like that a lot. If people, have ideas or if they have questions or whatnot ever, and they want to reach out to you or someone on your team, what's the best way that they can reach you?
Yeah. So once again, I think the best first point is 311,
Okay.
because sometimes people call here
Yeah.
and maybe you do get kind of bounced around here to figure out, okay, who's the right person
Yeah. Yeah.
that this specific question should
Sure.
be asking for. And then also just, I mean, granted, we're only a month left of this kind of remote and hybrid working, but
Yeah.
also just because not everyone's in the office next to their phones in the way they used to be. So 311. But we also can be reached by email. The Oh shoot, I can't remember what my main email, but our website, kalamazooCity.org, and we also have a front desk person who is back full time here in the office, so that's really great. And her number to reach her, 337-8044. And then in my division and my team, my name's Sharilyn Parsons, so you can find me in and out. I'm also sort of in field a lot, so
That's,
patience is required to get
no,
to me, but
that's great.
yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
All right. And is there anything I missed that you wish I had asked or that you want to make sure to share?
Um, so sorry, I sort of got stuck on you strike me as an optimist. I feel good about that comment. Well, good.
I don't think you would get in your position if you were an optimist. So,
Right, right.
so the
Yes,
sky,
yeah.
it's only up from here. So, in housing. So we do have a couple fun questions for you if you're open to it.
Yeah.
All right. So if you had to pick a Kalamazoo hero or shiro, who do you most look up to or admire?
Hmm. Okay, I'm going to answer that question by answering it indirectly. So I don't actually have a lot of individual heroes or sheroes. I love interacting with people, and I really find anybody who is willing to sort of operate in what they know to maybe be not their strongest suit or in a weakness, and have the courage to just step out and try. I consider whoever has the courage to step out and try really heroic. Um, I just, yes, that's how I'm answering it. If you have the courage to step out and try, even if you know it's your weakness, and even if you know you're gonna, wring your hands or rock your chair,
Yeah.
I'll look at that person and be like, wow, I admire them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I just noticed really quick that there was it said 411 at the bottom, but they just changed. Jason from our team just changed it to 311. It should be 311 at the bottom if
It's
people want to reach us.
311.
Yep. So
Yeah.
just want to make sure to point that out, but it is correct now. So I just wanted to make sure you to note that. That's a
Right.
really good response. I appreciate that. So favorite place to eat in Kalamazoo?
Keika's, because they still have a night of the week where $1.25 tacos. Enough said. Enough said.
Yeah, absolutely.
Uh,
If you had a day off in the city, to do anything you want, what would you do?
so a couple things I really do enjoy doing. I kind of like enjoying sitting on some random bench, thinking, dreaming, watching the city interact and
Yeah,
move by. But that's sort of tied into my work, and so I thought, oh, that's a bad answer. So so the other kind of funny thing, what I might be doing is catching a game of disc golf that I'm not super great at, but I love doing. It
so
lets
fun.
me walk and I'm honing my skills as they
Yeah,
pertain to disc golf.
yeah.
Yes.
I saw Parks and Rec is actually doing like a kind of like almost like a training tutorial type disc golf thing, because we have a pretty sweet disc golf park at Spring Valley Park. If you've ever been
Mhm.
up there,
Oh yeah, it's a great disc golf course,
yeah,
and it's just it's a yeah, it's a fun leisurely well, the way I play leisurely activity. Yeah,
yeah,
so I might be you might see me with my daughter catching a game of disc golf.
sounds awesome. That sounds like a good
Yeah,
day. Um,
yeah.
would you consider yourself an extrovert or an introvert?
I'm an extrovert. Um,
Shocking.
yeah, right. I'm an extrovert. Although although I do need to steal away to think and to kind
Yeah,
of regroup. It takes as an extrovert, I tend to be people oriented and kind of so to really kind of hone in on
yeah.
what needs to be done and to stop, I've learned to appreciate just kind of the stop, think, give space.
Recenter everything. Yeah,
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 totally, absolutely. I'm
yeah.
with you there.
Mhm.
What would you consider like your leadership philosophy? It's a tough question.
We rise or fall together.
Nice.
So kind of thinking back to my, just my idea of what heroics look like. I really feel very strongly, sort of at the core of me, that everyone has strengths and everyone has weaknesses. And and my strengths might compensate for your weaknesses and your strengths might compensate for my weaknesses. So so really vision manifest when we work together, when we value together.
Yeah,
And so
yeah,
that's probably yeah.
I love that. It's great.
Mhm.
All right, so two more questions. These are like complete the sentence type questions. So,
Okay.
Kalamazoo is best at blank.
Balancing small city with big flavor.
Yeah, I like that. So true. Um, the best kept secret in Kalamazoo is blank.
Kalamazoo Central has a disc golf course. Yeah, you
Very
don't
nice.
have although the one out further is a beautiful course, if you're just local and you're
Yeah,
just like, "Hey, I wanna kinda catch a fast game."
yeah,
It's a legit disc golf course.
yeah. Yeah, no, that's great. That's good.
Yeah,
Good kept secret. We've
yeah.
actually learned some pretty interesting things asking people that question that I did not realize about the city. We really appreciate you being on. I know you are one of the busiest people in the city, so we really appreciate the time to let people, learn a little bit more about what's going on and what's going on in your world. Again, this is Sharilyn Parsons, Housing Development Projects Coordinator with the City of Kalamazoo. Sharilyn, really a pleasure to chat with you today, and really appreciate your time.
Well, you too. Thank you so much, and thanks for all you guys do at Community Homeworks.
Yeah.
Really do appreciate sort of the collaborations and the partnership that we at the city have with you. So
Yeah.
thanks for having me today.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, if you want to learn more, Shirley mentioned that you can go to kalamazooCity.org. You can also call their 311 number, which is their information extension to get connected to the right source, so you're not trying to hop around and find the right person. And then, of course, for us, if you want to learn more about community homeworks, you can go to communityhomeworks.org. And our number here is 269-998-3275. And again, we're here for income eligible individuals who own homes here in the city of Kalamazoo, and we provide critical home repairs and empowering education. You can join us every Tuesday at 6 p.m. for a new topic. And we've got some great topics coming up here in the next couple of weeks. We're going to end right before the holidays on December 21st with, I believe, a heating systems class as well. So we've got a lot of great content to check out. And you can also go to our website and click. We have a bank of over 50 classes that we've recorded in the last year on every topic from what to do to get ready for fall and winter to how to maintenance your water heater. So please check those out. And again, thanks, Sharilyn, for all your time. Have a great day, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.